In my previous videos, I mentioned some important parts of team building, like using your favorite characters, and some theory crafting concepts about elemental application and reactions. In order to dig deeper into these topics, I wanted to make a series of videos on how to build a team, since while I was doing some research, I noticed the lack of updated content, with most of the videos not including Dendro characters, and many missing information on a few characters before that. The videos that were released within the last few months recommended teams, but didn't really teach you how to build, customize, or optimize teams yourself. This series of team building guides won't give specific recommendations as to who to put on your team, or how to build each character, but it will cover more overarching topics like evaluating which roles you need, keeping an open mind as to who can fill each role, and what types of teams have been established. The further you go into the series, the more technical the information will be, so I'll try to keep everything in the most understandable terms. We'll start by setting a solid foundation for new players in this video before getting into the meat and potatoes of team building in the future. So in the first video of this series, I figured we should cover the simplest topics, terminology and team roles. Traditionally, characters have been sorted into the following categories: DPS, sub-DPS, support, and healers, with more ways to describe niche subsets of each role. I'm sure that each Genshin resource you use, from the wiki to content creators, will separate and define these terms differently, so just keep in mind that what I'm about to go over may vary from person to person, and even change over time. With that out of the way, let's start with DPS. In this context, it stands for damage per second, but it can also stand for damage per screenshot. This is usually the main source of damage for your team. A sub-DPS character deals substantial damage, but usually not as much as your main DPS. Support characters debuff enemies, buff your team, or generate shields, and healers obviously restore HP to members of your party. Now let's get into some words that can be used to describe subsets of any role. A battery is a character who generates elemental particles for your teammates. Burst supports are characters who swap onto the field mainly just to use their burst, then swap off. A carry usually refers to your DPS character, but can be used to denote any character that's really good at a specific role, like healing. A driver is the on-field character that is used to improve or trigger off-field character abilities. Enablers improve another character's damage, usually through reactions. A flex spot is a team slot that many characters can fill, depending on which characters that you have. A hyper carry is a character with better scaling than regular DPS characters that make them a little bit more niche to take that main damaging role. Shielders obviously create shields for your party through abilities or reactions. And finally, on-field and off-field. These signify where a character is for most of their damage or other effects. For example, Barbara can be an on-field healer, as her skill heals the entire party as she does damage, or she can be an off-field healer, with her skill passively healing the on-field character. Now that we have the main terms down, we can look at traditional team comps with new perspective. Let's take a peek at the national team. The name national originated from a Chinese slang word meaning commonly used by people, and it's easy to see why. This team is made up of Xiangling, who you get for free, Bennett and Xingqiu, who you can buy from Paimon's bargains, and Xiangyun, who you can get from any banner. When you put these characters together, they naturally fall into roles. Xiangling as the DPS, Bennett as the buffer and healer, Xingqiu as the sub-DPS, and Xiangyun as support. This comp specializes in vaporize and melt reactions. However, since Xiangyun occupies this team's flex slot, many 5-star characters can be added to amplify this team's damage and synergy. The most common Xiangyun replacement is Raiden Shogun. While this does remove any melt potential, Raiden's damage and energy utility more than make up for it. Additional substitutions can be made, like Ayato or Yelan for Xingqiu. In this team, pairing Xiangling with Bennett has multiple benefits. Pyro Resonance increases every party member's attack stat, while these two Pyro characters consistently generate particles for each other. We all know how good Bennett's burst attack buff can be, but with Xiangling we get to see another interesting mechanic. Xiangling's burst is affected by any buff that's currently in play, but has a unique quality to it, snapshotting. This means that when Pyronado is cast, all current buffs are assigned to it for its full duration, regardless of if the original buff is still up. For example, if Xiangling activates her burst within Bennett's burst, the damage buffs are applied to the Pyronado, even if Xiangling leaves Bennett's circle, or if the circle's duration ends. Just remember that snapshotting works the other way as well. You can't buff Pyronado with Bennett's Burst after it's been cast. Xiangling's Pyronado is the team's main source of damage, which is why she fits so well into the DPS role. Bennett's Burst perfectly slots him in as the team's buffer and healer, and Xingqiu's coordinated rain swords make him an ideal support. The only team member with a less obvious role is Xiong. With this skill, he infuses the entire team's normal attacks with Cryo, enabling freeze and melt reactions. Next, let's take a look at a team that would be considered unconventional. Here we have Ayaka, Ganyu, Ayato, and Yelan. Ayaka has her regular Blizzard Strayer Mistsplitter build, but no one else is on their regular kit that I would give them. Ganyu has 4-piece Emblem and Sacrificial Bow to be burst support and a battery. Ayato has 4-piece Emblem and Fab Sword to be support, and Yelan is running 4-piece Noblesse with Favonius Bow to be burst support as well as battery. Using Masanori as an example, you can see how every character's burst and skill works to support Ayaka. Ganyu generates energy for Ayaka, provides a 20% cryo damage bonus within her burst, and activates Cryo Resonance, which boosts Ayaka's crit rate against cryo-affected and frozen enemies by 15%. Sacrificial Bow enables Ganyu to use her skill more often, and the emblem set allows her to get her burst back faster. Ayato provides a 12% attack bonus with his burst, and with Favonius Sword he generates particles for the entire team, as well as getting better energy recharge with emblem like Ganyu. Yelan contributes coordinated hydro attacks with her burst, which also buffs the on-field character's damage by up to 50%. Her Favonius Bow ups everyone's energy levels, and her Noblesse set buffs everyone's attack by another 20% when she uses her burst. So in total, Ayaka receives the following buffs: 32% attack, 50% damage, 15% crit rate, and 20% cryo damage. With no shielder or healer, it's incredibly important for this team to keep enemies frozen as long as possible. As you can see, we're able to keep Masanori from healing with all the hydro and cryo application, mostly from Ganyu and Ayato's bursts. Overall, with the low investment I have into most of these builds, this team probably can't clear endgame content like Floor 12 of the Spiral Abyss. But with the same res investment as my other teams, I'm sure this comp would do just fine for a team composed of on-field DPS characters repurposed into supports. I hope you enjoyed this video, but it's just the first in a series to introduce new players to team building and a little theory crafting. Like I mentioned earlier, this video is meant to create a common foundation for the future so we can all be on the same page moving forward. In the second video in the series, I'll be covering different types of damage and elemental reactions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.